I never thought I'd have to bury my wife so young. The funeral was already unbearable, but knowing my daughter, Lily, had to go through it too made it even worse. She was only 9, far too young to lose her mother. Lily had always had long, beautiful brown hair, just like her mom's. It was her comfort, her connection to the mother she had just lost. That's why, when she asked me if she could keep it long in memory of her, I didn't hesitate. But Karen, the HOA president and self-appointed ruler of our neighborhood, didn't see it that way. She had been a thorn in my side since we moved in, always nitpicking about grass length, driveway stains, and mailbox colors. But this was a new level of evil. The funeral had barely ended when I noticed Karen whispering to Lily. I didn't think much of it at first. I was too busy thanking guests and holding myself together. But when I finally looked around for my daughter, she was gone. Panic hit me like a truck. I searched the small funeral hall, my heart pounding. Then, finally, I spotted her. She was standing in the restroom doorway, her tiny hands gripping the sink, her body shaking. Her hair was gone. Someone had taken a pair of scissors to her head, chopping off every last strand. It was uneven, jagged, brutal. She looked up at me, eyes red and filled with horror. She said Mom would want me to look proper. Lily's voice was barely a whisper. I felt my entire body go numb. Karen. I turned and saw her standing by the exit, arms crossed, a smug smile on her lips. It was necessary, she said. We can't have children looking unkempt. It reflects poorly on the community. I saw red. I clenched my fists so tightly my nails dug into my palms. My wife was gone, and now this woman had taken something from my daughter that she could never get back. I stepped forward, voice dangerously low. You just made the biggest mistake of your life. Karen barely flinched. She stood there with that same smug expression, like she hadn't just violated my daughter in the most humiliating way possible. It's just hair, she scoffed. She'll thank me when she's older. Besides, it was a mess. Children should look presentable, especially in our neighborhood. Lily clung to my side, trembling. I could feel her little fingers gripping my shirt, her silent sobs shaking her whole body. My jaw tightened so hard I thought my teeth might crack. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tear into her right then and there. But I knew losing my temper wouldn't help Lily. She needed me to be strong, and strength meant handling this the right way. So instead, I turned to the funeral guests. Did anyone see her do it? My voice was steady, controlled, but filled with rage. A few people hesitated, then an elderly neighbor stepped forward. I saw Karen leading Lily away. I thought it was odd, but I assumed she was just comforting her. Another woman, one of my wife's old friends, nodded. She had scissors in her hand. I thought maybe she was fixing a thread on Lily's dress, but oh my God. Her hands flew to her mouth. Karen rolled her eyes. Oh, please stop being dramatic. She waved a hand dismissively. You should be thanking me. Someone had to do it. That girl was looking like a street urchin. That was it. I turned back to Lily, crouching down so we were eye level. Sweetheart, I said softly, I promise you she is never going to get away with this. She sniffled, nodding weakly, still too shocked to speak. I straightened and locked eyes with Karen. You just laid hands on my child without my permission. That's assault. Her smirk finally faltered. Oh, don't be ridiculous. I pulled out my phone. You can explain that to the police. The color drained from her face. You wouldn't dare. I pressed dial. Watch me. Karen's smirk vanished the second I said the word police. Her face went pale, and for the first time I saw something I never expected from her: fear. You can't be serious, she scoffed, but her voice wavered. It's just a haircut, it's not a crime. I took a step closer, lowering my voice so only she could hear. You put your hands on my grieving daughter, cut off something she treasured, and humiliated her in front of her family. That's assault on a minor. I let that sink in before adding, and I'm pressing charges. Karen's eyes darted to the funeral guests, now murmuring among themselves. Some were glaring at her. Others were whispering, shaking their heads. The pressure was closing in, and she knew it. Then she did what cowards always do when they're cornered. She doubled down. "This is insane," she shrieked, throwing her hands up. "I did what any good parent would do. You're a single father now. You don't know how to raise a girl properly. Someone has to step in before she starts running around looking like some wild child." Lily flinched at her words, pressing herself closer to me. That was the last straw. "You don't ever get to decide what's best for my daughter," I snapped, my voice sharp as steel. "And trust me, Karen, you're going to regret this." Before she could spew another excuse, the line connected. 911, what's your emergency? I kept my eyes locked on Karen as I spoke. "Yes, I'd like to report an assault on my 9-year-old daughter. The suspect is still on the premises." Karen's mouth fell open. You can't be serious. You're ruining my reputation." "Should have thought about that before you touched my child." Lily gripped my arm, her small voice barely above a whisper. "Dad, are they really coming?" I softened, looking down at her tear-streaked face. "Yes, sweetheart, they are." I brushed a gentle hand over her shaved head, my heart breaking all over again. "And I promise you she'll never touch you again." Karen took a shaky step back, eyes darting around like a trapped rat. She was finally realizing, this time she wasn't getting away with it. Karen's confidence shattered the moment she heard the word police. Her face twisted with panic, her eyes darting between me, Lily, and the growing crowd of funeral guests who were all now whispering amongst themselves. "This is ridiculous," she stammered. "I was helping. It's not a crime to give a child a proper haircut. You're making a scene over nothing." I didn't even look at her. My focus was on Lily, who was still shaking beside me. My little girl, who had already lost so much, had been humiliated at her own mother's funeral. That wasn't nothing. Karen must have realized her usual intimidation tactics weren't working because she suddenly switched gears. Her voice softened, her tone fake and pleading. "Come on," she said, forcing a laugh. "You don't really want to involve the police. It's just a misunderstanding. If it means that much to you, I don't know, buy her a wig." Lily flinched at the word wig, and something inside me snapped. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm. "This isn't just about hair, Karen. It's about control. You took something from my daughter that wasn't yours to take. You humiliated her, and for what? To satisfy your own twisted sense of authority." Karen folded her arms, her face darkening. "This is my neighborhood. I uphold the standards here. If you can't handle that, maybe you should move." A few guests gasped, my fists clenched. Before I could respond, the sound of sirens pierced the air. Karen's face drained of color. "You actually called them." I turned to Lily and knelt so we were eye level. "Listen to me, sweetheart," I said gently. "The police are going to ask what happened. I need you to tell them the truth, okay? No matter what." She nodded, swallowing hard. I stood just as the squad car pulled up. 2 officers stepped out, their eyes scanning the situation. Karen immediately rushed toward them, her voice laced with artificial concern. "Oh, thank God you're here. This man is harassing me at a funeral." She gestured wildly toward me. "He's causing a scene in front of his own child. It's honestly disturbing." One officer frowned. "Ma'am, slow down. We received a call about an assault on a minor." His gaze flickered to Lily, who was still clutching my sleeve, her shaved head visible. His frown deepened. "Is this the child in question?" Karen hesitated for a fraction of a second. Then she scoffed. "Oh, for heaven's sake, it was just a haircut. He's blowing this way out of proportion." The officer's eyes narrowed. "You cut her hair." Karen let out an exasperated laugh. "I was helping. She looked wild. I did what any responsible adult would do." The second officer knelt in front of Lily, his voice gentle. "Sweetheart, did she do this without your permission?" Lily hesitated, then nodded. I told her I didn't want to, but she said I had no choice." Her voice wavered. "She said my mom would want me to look proper." Silence. A cold, heavy silence. The first officer's jaw tightened. He looked at Karen. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to turn around and place your hands behind your back." Karen's eyes went wide. "What, are you kidding me, over hair?" The officer didn't budge. "You're under arrest for battery of a minor." Karen shrieked as they grabbed her wrists, trying to yank away. This is insane. I run this neighborhood. You can't do this to me. I knelt beside Lily, wrapping a protective arm around her as we watched Karen get shoved into the back of the squad car, still screeching about how unfair it was. I leaned down, whispering so only Lily could hear. This is just the beginning. Karen was still shrieking as the officers pushed her into the squad car. She kicked at the door, demanding they call her lawyer, her voice filled with outrage and disbelief. It was almost comical. This woman had spent years terrorizing the neighborhood, convinced she was untouchable. And now, she was just another criminal in handcuffs. But this wasn't enough. A single arrest wouldn't teach Karen the lesson she needed to learn. She had money, connections. She'd probably weasel her way out of this with a fine and a slap on the wrist. No, I needed to make sure she never did this to anyone else again. And I had the perfect plan. I spent the next few days gathering every single piece of dirt I could find on Karen. I spoke to neighbors, dug through HOA complaints, even checked county records. And what I found? Gold. Karen had been running the HOA like her personal empire, issuing outrageous fines, bullying homeowners into selling, and even pocketing HOA funds. I compiled everything, bank records, testimonies, video footage of her harassing neighbors. Then I sent it everywhere. The HOA board, the local news, the IRS. I didn't stop there. I hired a lawyer and filed a personal lawsuit against her for emotional distress and child endangerment. She'd have to fight me in court while dealing with a fraud investigation. And just to twist the knife a little deeper, I made sure every single homeowner in the neighborhood knew exactly what she'd done. By the end of the week, Karen had bigger problems than her mugshot. Her bank accounts were being audited. Her lawyer had dropped her case. And the HOA board, they held an emergency meeting, one that resulted in Karen being officially removed from her position. The best part, her own neighbors turned against her. She went from the self-proclaimed queen of the neighborhood to an outcast. No one would speak to her, no one would defend her. She had built her little kingdom on fear and control, and now it was all crumbling down. And the best was yet to come. Karen was unraveling, and I was enjoying every second of it. At first, she tried to fight back. She stormed into HOA meetings, demanding they reinstate her. She sent out emails, calling me a liar and a troublemaker. But the evidence was overwhelming. The bank statements alone proved she had been siphoning HOA funds for years. Then came the news segment. A local reporter picked up the story. Former HOA president under investigation for fraud and child endangerment. Karen's mugshot flashed across the screen, her face pale and stunned. The reporter interviewed multiple neighbors, all too happy to share their stories of how she had fined them into oblivion, threatened them over minor infractions, and even tried to evict a retired veteran for having a garden gnome. Karen was now infamous. And the final blow, the civil lawsuit I filed against her personally. She showed up to court looking rough, her usual polished appearance replaced with disheveled hair and hollow eyes. She must have thought the judge would take pity on her. Maybe she thought she could spin this into some sob story about being an upstanding community leader who had been wrongfully attacked. But then the footage played. One of the funeral guests had recorded the entire incident, Karen dragging Lily away, ignoring her protests, and forcibly shaving her head while smirking. The courtroom was silent as the video played. When it ended, I turned to look at her. She wouldn't even meet my eyes. The judge didn't hold back. He ruled in my favor, awarding me damages for emotional distress. He also recommended a restraining order against Karen. She would never be allowed near me or Lily again. But that wasn't even the best part. By the time Karen walked out of that courtroom, she had lost everything. Her reputation destroyed. Her job gone. Her money being seized in the fraud investigation. And her house. The HOA, now under new leadership, voted to fine her for every single violation she had ever let slide for herself. Wrong paint colors, unapproved landscaping, even an illegally extended patio. The total, over $50,000 in fines. And when she couldn't pay, they foreclosed on her home. The woman who once terrorized the neighborhood, who had shaved my daughter's head in an act of pure cruelty, was now homeless. And I wasn't done watching her fall. Karen tried to fight back. She appealed the foreclosure, but with her assets frozen under investigation, she had no way to pay the legal fees. She even tried to rally the neighborhood, hoping anyone would come to her defense. But no one did. The same people she had fined, bullied, and harassed for years now watched in satisfaction as she packed up her belongings. I made sure to be there when the moving trucks arrived, not to gloat, just to make sure she saw me. She spotted me across the street, standing with Lily. For a brief moment I saw something in her eyes, regret, shame, maybe just the realization that she had finally lost. But then, in true Karen fashion, she snapped. "This is your fault," she shrieked, throwing a box onto the pavement. "You did this to me, you and that little brat of yours." Lily flinched, and before I could respond, a new voice cut in. "You're really blaming a child for your own mess." We turned to see Mrs. Thompson, the elderly woman Karen had once tried to fine for excessive bird feeders. Behind her stood half the neighborhood, people who had suffered under Karen's reign of terror. Another neighbor, Mr. Garcia, shook his head. "You did this to yourself, Karen." Karen's face burned red. "You all deserved what I did. You people let this neighborhood become trash. I was the only one keeping it in line." A laugh came from the crowd, and now we're taking it back. Karen's mouth opened and closed, but there was nothing left for her to say. With no allies, no money, and no home, she had finally lost. As she climbed into her car, her final act of defiance was a furious glare in my direction. "You think you've won?" she spat. "You have no idea what's coming." I smiled. "Oh, I think I do." And with that, Karen, the self-proclaimed queen of the neighborhood, sped off, exiled from the very kingdom she had ruled with an iron fist. And I knew she wasn't coming back. The neighborhood felt lighter after Karen's departure. People who had once lived in fear of her ridiculous rules and constant harassment were now outside, chatting, smiling, living without the constant threat of fines or petty complaints. And Lily, she was healing. The first time I saw her truly smile again was when she walked into her room and found the surprise I had been working on. A beautiful collection of wigs, all in different styles and colors, laid out neatly on her dresser. She turned to me, her eyes wide. "Dad, you did this for me." I knelt beside her. "You get to decide what you want, sweetheart, no one else." Tears welled in her eyes, but this time they weren't from pain. "Thank you." She picked up a wig, a soft, golden brown one that closely matched her natural hair, and slipped it on. When she turned to the mirror, she let out a small, breathless laugh. "I look like me again." I wrapped my arms around her. "You never stopped being you, Lily, and no one will ever take that from you again." As for Karen, well, last I heard, she was still drowning in legal trouble. The fraud investigation had escalated. Turns out, she had been pocketing HOA funds for years, and now the IRS was breathing down her neck. With no job, no home, and no way to escape her mounting debts, she had gone from queen of the neighborhood to a disgraced nobody. Poetic justice at its finest. One afternoon, as Lily and I sat outside on our porch, she suddenly asked, "Do you think she learned her lesson?" I chuckled. People like Karen never learn, but she did face consequences. Lily smirked, her confidence slowly returning. "Good." She leaned her head against my arm, watching as neighbors laughed and enjoyed their newfound freedom. The same community Karen had tried to control was now stronger, kinder, better, because she was gone. And just like that, peace was restored.